Shaun Bunn. I'm the managing director of Empire Metals. We're an AIM listed but Australian focused copper and gold exploration company.
You are indeed. Shaun, good to see you. Haven't seen you since October. Share price 1.15 p, now up over 2 p. So market's liking what you're doing. What were the things that you think you did in 2022 that have allowed this success?
Well, 2022 started off as a real rebuild, repositioning of our company. We built a really great portfolio around, initially starting with our Eclipse asset, a high-grade gold asset north of Kalgoorlie. We did an agreement bolted on the Jindalby license, which is an adjacent mining license there. And then we brought in three really exciting, potentially large copper exploration targets. The one that we're really excited about, the one that's moved right up the, right up the ladder, if you like, in terms of our main project, is Pitfield, which is the project that we have up at Three Springs, just north of Perth. And of course, we have the Walton and Staveley projects, which we're slowly moving towards getting some groundwork on.
Right. Okay. So you've been you've sorted out the portfolio, as it were. But I think the thing that's getting people excited is the copper, and that's the thing I think we should spend the time talking about at Pitfield. But just remind people, you've kind of got this kind of quick to kill mentality or quick to flip mentality in terms of the rest of the portfolio, by dint of your background. Have you had? I mean, how much luck are you having in terms of moving the Eclipse and Jindalby projects? Is that on the cards this year, 2023?
We would consider options around that particular license area. The high-grade gold is not a bad target to be going for, but these tend to be, as we've demonstrated through our campaign to date, quite narrow high-grade vein systems. The likelihood now of finding a company making large gold deposit there, to be honest, is probably diminishing. But I think it's got huge potential for an existing gold producer to come in and find more high-grade feed for their plant. So, we're looking at that. Having said that, we went back to Jindalby last week, first week of January, and did a small drill campaign around a target area that we had picked up some kaolinized clay. Very interested in just finishing that exploration work and just seeing what we have discovered. Kaolin is, maybe not that well-known a commodity at the moment in the UK, but it's getting a lot of traction here in Australia as a potential source for high-grade purity, high purity aluminium. So very interesting if we've got something there.
Right. Okay. But it's one of those things that you're going to have to sell the benefits to someone, and it's a very sort of specific audience that's could potentially be attracted to that. So it's non kind of core at the moment. It may have some value, but it may not. So copper up over $4 at the moment. People are excited about what the copper market could bring this year. So what have you done there? There's some drilling happening. Have you got any assays back yet?
We've not drilled yet at Pitfield. The question there is really, where do we drill along that 40-kilometre magnetic anomaly? So what we had at Pitfield, we announced late last year, was the results of geophysical surveys that we had completed. So there was always a density high, a high gravity target there that we flew the magnetics, aeromagnetics. So we have a coincidental high magnetic, high gravity anomaly that stretches over 40 kilometres. So we've gone back in, we've done electromagnetic surveys around that area to see where the conductivity lies. And what that clearly shows is that anomaly is reasonably it's resistive, it's non-conductive, so it's been altered. So all those factors build up to a really compelling argument that there's been a massive basin scale alteration event. Copper fluids have risen up from the bedrocks, and we are now looking to find out where these solutions might have been, met with more graphitic, more carbonaceous rock, and hence dropped out copper sulfides. And there's a huge evidence in the area. We've got high-grade copper mines. We've got 7 kilometres worth of soil anomalies collected by CRA back in the 90s. There is copper across the entire extent of our licence area. So we know copper's there. We know that we've got the right conditions to have a very large-scale, giant copper region. And what we're going to do now is go in and identify where to drill.
Right. Okay. So, giant copper. Just clarify terminology there. Giant copper means what?
That's a geological term. Anything above about 10 million tons of contained copper. So you're talking about substantial. The Utica copper project in Russia. There's a number of big giants. South America, obviously. We're talking about things that put us on the world map, not just a small high grade copper target here. We are chasing a giant.
Right. Okay. So it's of scales. There's supergiants and behemoths as well, but so you're chasing big. When do you get to the point of trying to understand what the grade is? What the depth of this is, what the sort of the length of the mineralization is, because drilling is where people start to pay attention. So when do you get to that point?
Reasonably soon. We originally had envisaged doing further surface IP work, the induced polarization, surveys. That what effectively we do is we run a cable over a couple of kilometres, punch an electrical charge into the earth, and what you're looking for is a response, an electrical field. So you're getting what we would say is either chargeability or resistive, a highly resistive type response. And what we will release in the next few weeks is the results of that work. I can't release information at the moment because we just simply are still waiting for the geophysical interp. What we know from the survey team is that they reported during the work that they were picking up really high chargeability areas across some of those lines.
And what does that mean? So what does that mean? Because you don't want to get too technical. You'll leave a lot of people behind. So what does that actually mean?
So if you've got an electric current pumping down, and all of a sudden you get this big charge building in the ground, then there's something there that's electrically chargeable, if you like, and that's the simplest way to describe it. So you're talking about sulfides. You're talking about disseminated sulfides or some massive sulfide accumulation, but on that scale, it's probably a very large disseminated sulfide occurrence. Now, what is the sulfides that we're picking up? That's why we have to drill. We won't know until we punch a drill hole through the middle of that.
And then how does that help you in terms of identifying where to drill, the targeting, the modelling around the drill plan?
So what we've already know from the original survey targets, that we're dealing with an area to the north, for instance. So on this 40-kilometre stretch, we obviously can't drill the whole 40K. So we're focusing on an area that looks really interesting at the moment. It's about a kilometre wide by about 1.6 kilometres long. So you're talking about something that's bigger than the Wembley football stadium by multiples. So I can still spend a hell of a lot of time trying to drill that area out. So it will be a wide space drilling program. We would go through and put a fence line down through that, maybe a couple of fence lines, with the view that we've got to intercept what this conductor looks like. What is this charged host? What is making that up? Is it disseminated sulfides, chalcopyrite? Is it chalcosites? Is it what is it? And I can only do that with a drill rig.
So when do we get to that point? Because that's going to be the exciting bit of this, because we can look at all the analogous data, like you've got BHPs in the region, right? And we've kind of got a sense of what they're finding, but you've got to put on the table the sorts of grades that you're expecting to see, because people get a sense of what the economics could be once you start able to give us that sort of data. So what's the timing, and have you got the money to do that?
Timing-wise, we would anticipate submitting and preparing all of the plans necessary to get on the ground within the next few months. So what we'd be saying is targeting a drill program by end of March, early April. And what we would be looking at is a fairly wide-space drilling campaign, RC drilling, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that deep. So it's not an incredibly expensive program. We have the funds already in the bank. We would be, let's call it a scouting operation initially, as I said, to find out what is giving us these highly charged signals. What is sitting there over a very large area that we've identified. And if it's copper minerals, then we found something. We found part of the giant.
Right. Okay. And so, just help people. So, scouting mission means like maybe convert it into meters or dollars or however you want to do it. But give how much are you going to do? How long is that going to take? How quickly before we start seeing some of the numbers that come out of that?
Oh, look, we'll come back to the market after we get the IP results and after we get the geochemistry and prepare a proper program. I wouldn't like to second guess what we might choose to do. But the reality is we know, as I said, from the survey itself, without even the geological interp, that we have a substantial target and that we are moving the drilling program up. Fast forwarding that, we had originally anticipated not being able to drill until towards the end of the year. And keep in mind, this is farmland as well. There are wheat crops, so we need to be able to get access onto these areas prior to the crops going in or after the crops come out. So, we are working on a plan at the moment to go sooner rather than later.
Oh, that's really interesting. So I hadn't considered that. So your timing's kind of defined by the agricultural industry there. So how does that work when you do discover stuff? Because you're imagining this is pretty shallow stuff, right? So this isn't going to be underground mining. So how does that work eventually?
Oh, well, the process that we go through, not getting ahead of ourselves in terms of making a discovery, but the process we go through is that these guys have massive farmlands. I mean, even a decent sized discovery is disturbing, a very small part of a wheat farm. But in terms of drilling, we can still drill during the harvest, during the crop season, but then you just have to negotiate compensation for damage. If you drive over a crop, you got to replace the value. And so what we tend to do is avoid too much disturbance at this particular, that particular part of the year, and manage around the problems.
The things you have to navigate. I mean, sometimes literally. So I mean, we've talked in the past about all this old data that you've got. Obviously, there's some surface work done previously. Is there any sort of drill data that comes with that historical data, or is it that all to come?
There was some initial drilling done by, for instance, BHP that looked at drilling. They drilled 4 diamond holes, but they drilled into the basement. So that was a curious a target that they chose to drill into, and
as opposed to what? Where should they have drilled?
Well, the basement is a different type of geological host. So basically, what we're drilling into, we're looking into is the sandstones. So where the copper will be trapped will be within the carbonaceous sandstones, where the fluids have come up, made contact with the reducing component, and dropped out copper sulfate.
Interesting. Why do you think they did that? I mean, classic schoolboy error. Everyone knows they shouldn't have done that, but why do you think they did?
They're possibly looking for a different geological model. They're possibly looking for. I mean, it might have been just a simply. I mean, BHP. They were 4 holes is, not going to worry their bank too much. So they probably could have been just again a scouting mission that they put down to see what might be in the basement. Yeah, who knows? That's about 40 years ago. So not even sure those guys are still around.
Right. Okay. So in terms of come back to the kind of portfolio, stepping back, because look, I'm always intrigued by sort of the strategy of small companies. You're up around 8.5, £9 million at the moment, up from around 5 when I last saw you. It's still small, right? So you've got to be careful and cautious with your capital and the allocation of your capital. You've got to do the right thing. So with a portfolio approach, you get tempted to kind of spend a little bit here, a little bit there, and before you know it, life's a bit tight. So for you, for 2023, the focus of your money is what?
Pitfield, and Pitfield is the simple answer. The conundrum we have is simple. So we have something that is potentially enormous value, a complete company builder, at Pitfield. Everything. If there were 10 things we had to tick the box on, we're now up to say number 7 or 8. Tick, 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 tick. We're heading right down the path of putting the drill holes in, making our discoveries. That will change the complete playing field of this company and how people view the potential for us to have a giant copper project. That said, is we will continue to do some work on our other assets and keep that optionality open. I don't think I would walk away from a large scale commodity on any one of those assets, but whether we would continue to take them through to a higher level of development, or whether we'll just add value and on sell, or bring in a partner or farm in, that's part of the portfolio, and it's easy to manage. I think, Matthew, you've got to understand that none of those projects are now sucking up a lot of our time and money. They are low cost exploration strategies, and we'll just keep them rolling forward.
Right, and the most obvious being Staveley and Walton, because they're over in Victoria.
The Staveley one is in the Arc. That'll be once we get access and ready to go. We'll do aeromagnetics again. We'll do geophysics. Good thing about Staveley is we've got a $500,000 Australian grant from the government. So basically we'll get a sort of 50% rebate on anything we spend there. So it's very low exploration costs over the next 12, 18 months to keep Staveley moving.
Right, but Walton back over northeast of Perth.
Walton's just north of Southern Cross here in Western Australia. That'll be initially a field mapping and soil sampling exercise just to get a lay of the land. You're talking about very modest expenditure to keep that tenement in good health and see what we have.
And you kind of reference that the money's the important bit here, because the cost of the money, and obviously share price is as high as it's been for a while. You're probably tempted to, or at least think about raising some additional funds in this quarter. Well, one, are you, and two, again, would that be for Pitfield?
It would be. We would take. We'll take that opportunity should it arise. I think the way to look at it is we are not looking for funds at the moment. We are not in need of funds at the moment. But once we complete this first quarter drilling at Pitfield and we find something, we will want to follow it up immediately with further work. We're not going to sit around and wait for 9 months, 12 months. We would continue to put work programs around that and just keep drilling. So we will judge the likely cash flow that we'll need in that period and look upon building on any successes we have. And that would be a great time for us to go back to the market and say, look, we've got copper. Now we just need to find more copper.
Right, which can be a really boring phase of work for the people looking from outside, looking in, What are the moments that you think are important that for investors to recognise or look out for, which could, be your kind of step change moment for the company?
Well, if we're correct in terms of our interpret pitfield, and this does have a numerous sedimented hosted copper deposits, those tend to be large zones, consistent zones. So what I'm going to be doing is saying, right, well, if I've found it, I'm going to be just stepping out and finding more of it. So it won't be boring. It will be, guys, we've just made this, this big copper find is now twice the size. It's now 3 times the size. It's now 10 times the size. So you're going to get a real, a real sense of something that is unfolding, and it all falls back to the fact that even this first drill program. So let's be realists. I could put a drill program up there in March and not get the high grade copper intercepts I'm looking for. I'm realistic about that, but we're looking initially for the sulfides. We've got 40 kilometers, as I keep saying, of this to go and hunt. So if we don't find it in the very first time we go looking, it doesn't mean it's not there. It just means that we've got to go back and look a bit further into that anomaly to see where the copper has come out.
Okay, well, best of luck on that one. Obviously, I think copper's super excited. People are, looking for, the next big copper project to get behind. So stay in touch with us. Let us know when some of this, more of the surface work is done. And let's see, how you interpret that, and indeed how we should interpret it. Thanks for your time today, Shaun.
Pleasure. Thank you, Matthew.